Welcome back to Khalifa Cultural Salon. And here today with me is Professor Amro Ali. He's a sociologist, public scholar, and UNESCO advisor for the Arab region. He works at the intersection of research, public life, and policy, and he's focused on fractured modernities in the Arab world. And he asks questions, or he tries to answer questions about political and cultural upheavals that shape governance, identity, and public life. Some of his work examines the aftermath of the Arab uprisings. Some follows the everyday reality of exile in Berlin, and some the city he's going to talk about today. And some question asks how communities respond to pressures of authoritarian rule, forced migration, extractive economies, and the rapid pace of digital change. Across these threads, he looks at how people make sense of rupture and discontinuity and recreate meaning through memory, place, and collective narratives in the ruins of old centuries. This is a brief introduction, and it doesn't really um, give give the whole picture of Professor Ali's work, but Professor Amr's work. But here again, I leave the floor to you, Professor Amr, to discuss our topic of the day about uh, the issues of identity um, after the and belonging after the 7th of October uh, events. The floor is all yours now.
Thank you, Professor Mahmoud, and thank you for the wonderful introduction. And it's really an honor to be on your talk show. And I would have to start with this probably this anecdote that took place early last year, where I was invited to uh, uh, for a lecture by the Palestinian American academic and brilliant scholar Rashid Khalidi. What was very interesting about it was that we were only told 2 hours in advance of the actual lecture in Berlin, and so and they told us not to photograph anything or when we attend the lecture, and it was very strange because I was not used to this type of announcements in Germany, and so what even and this was not even a live. This was a Zoom lecture as well. So he was speaking from outside Germany. But I do remember having to activate certain mechanisms that I've had to deal with in authoritarian contexts and having to apply it on a miniature level in Berlin. And while I was walking to the lecture and looking over my shoulders, and I had to ask myself, what has become of this place? This is not, the Berlin I remember. And just to attend a conventional lecture. I mean, it was a fascinating lecture. Of course, it's Rashid Khalidi, but it was not any different to what you might expect to be given by an academic or a renowned academic in this case. But of course, the elephant in the room is Gaza and Palestine. And so that was what is really touching on the nerves of the German establishment. Now, why does Berlin matter to me? I wrote an essay in 2019 called On the Need to Shape the Arab Exile Body in Berlin. And I had been analyzing the city for many years prior to that, where we started to see something happen in Berlin that was historically happening in cities like Paris or London or New York in the past. So in the past, New York became the refuge exile space for Jews after 1945. Then you had Paris becoming the exile hub for Latin American intellectuals and Latin Americans in general in the 1970s and the 80s, fleeing the dictatorships of South and Central America. What was interesting about Berlin was that it was starting to play that role for the Arab Spring. And Germany also had a very interesting relationship with the Arab world historically. It wasn't a colonizer in the Arab world. Of course, it colonized, Namibia and other places, but the relationship with the Arab world was that Germany could brand itself as a not a colonizer. I mean, with the exception of World War II and the Africa Corps under Rommel in North Africa, but besides that brief period, besides that, there wasn't a colonization project that took place by German governments since its establishment in the late 19th century. Of course, that's not to say that there's other forms of colonization, like economic colonization and that, but that's a different story. So the matter was that Arabs tended to have a very peculiar relationship with Germany on that ground. I mean, for the other reasons as well, but one of them was that there is no sour past between the two. Um, and so Germany could sell itself like that. And also, what also helped was the soft power through the Goethe Institute and various institutes across the Arab world, and also the branding like the Mercedes-Benz and Volkswagen and other German brand names. And so, yeah, and also I think what really probably climaxed on that was the German position to refusal to engage in the Iraq War in 2003, as well as Angela Merkel's open door policy for Syrian refugees in 2015. And I think this event won her many hearts in the Arab world. But for a long time, even during those days, the Palestine was sort of the taboo that if you had attended meetings in the Bundestag or the German Foreign Office, that they would if you're talking about an Arab country, they would like to talk about Tunisia, Morocco, etc. But when it comes to Palestine, somehow they always diverted it, or they skipped it or was minimized, and this was a red flag, or it should have been. But but just as say the Palestinian cause is the moral pulse of the Arab world, if not the world now, but uh, in Germany it's almost the anti-redemption thesis of how Germany makes peace with its past, and and this is why the way that Germany has behaved after 7th of October has been extremely erratic. With the crackdowns, the arrests, banning slogans like "From the river to the sea." Well, that's not a legal ban, but the police have arrested people for holding such signs. That it just becomes for many Arabs who, interestingly, by the way, I interviewed like for a report I was working on UNESCO on the preservation of the Arabic language in Germany, in diasporic context in Germany, the intergenerational transmission of Arabic. Many young Arabs spoke positively of the experiences in Germany prior to October 7. After October 7, I think 70% of the data almost became, I don't want to say useless, but um, I felt like I'd almost interviewed a different country with how things changed, how perceptions changed. So there is a lot of reflection going on and a lot of amongst Arabs in Germany, and if this country is still their country, if they can make a home here, is this a phase that Germany is going through? Well, on the one hand, one can say that the polling after polling shows that many Germans are sympathetic to the Palestinians, but that doesn't translate into government policy or establishment sentiments. So there is a lot of things that we need to understand about this changing Germany, not to mention the far right and its Germany's peculiar and relationship to categories of left wing and right wing, and what means actually different things abroad, where you might find someone who's a left-wing progressive, but also a staunch Zionist. That's not unusual to come across. Um, so yeah, it's a conversation that unfortunately I wish were just limited to conversation, but it also has foreign policy effects where you have, you know, weapons being exported to Israel, and they're turning the blind eye or trying to eliminate the term genocide from the international legal discussions of what's happening. So Germany is in a very strange place, or some might say it's actually it's in a very familiar place, given Germany's historical context.
I had this funny idea coming to me that the Germans will either commit a genocide or support one. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean the supporting one, complicity one, is very clear. That is what is happening. Uh, the that despite the changing landscape, uh, uh, with even now countries are taking divestment approaches very seriously. But you've still got